Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Emily Kuda. I'm Percona's Digital Marketing Manager. We'll get started in just a moment. I just want to conduct a little bit of housekeeping. Can you raise your hand to let me know that you can hear me? Great. Next, during this webinar, you will be on mute. If you have any questions, go ahead and enter those into the questions panel down below. At the end of the webinar, we'll take time to answer as many questions as possible. Those that aren't addressed will be answered in a follow-up blog entry on Percona's database performance blog. So with that said, I'd like to thank everybody for attending today's webinar as we talk about Percona Software and Services Update, presented by Percona's CEO, Peter Zaitsev. Take it away, Peter.
Hello. Good morning or afternoon or whatever time of day it is in your time zone. You never know with those anymore. So today we'll talk about what has been going on with Percona Software and Services, which is my way to provide you with a quick summary of what we have been doing, as well as a question I get a lot. And you will notice, perhaps, if you have been to some of those presentations before, there is some content which is similar, right? And some which is going to be the new one. So we'll talk about Percona Services, Percona Software, and some of the highlights of what we're working on. So in terms of our solutions and services, I wanted to talk to you briefly about really what Percona is and what is, do we believe, our place on the planet is. And really what we are about is about open source database solutions. Now that can be a little bit of a mouthful. So what that does really means? Well, that means a few things. That means, for example, when we write software, we do that to offer you you better solution. Ours is not the attempt to make sure what you are running the only Percona solution and nothing else. On the contrary, we use the best what the open source community has to offer, which is a lot, and only work on filling the gaps which don't exist. So, for example, years ago, we spotted there was no good open source backup solution for MySQL, and that's how Percona XtraBackup came to exist. Right, but in the cases where good open source solution already existed, we would just use those. Now, the great thing about the Percona software we provide is what all software we have is 100% free and open source software. We don't have like a very special open core version or any other stuff which is available to you only if you become our subscriber. All our software is available as an open source with no login required. And of course, we hope that you will also find our services of value as a support or managing services or consulting, because, well, that's how we fund all of those software development we do. What this also means is what we have a very broad ecosystem support. Like now, I often refer what we do is as MySQL and MongoDB at this point. But really, I take a very broad look at that ecosystem. That includes MySQL, MongoDB, Percona Server, Percona XtraDB cluster. It also includes the Amazon RDS or Google Cloud SQL editions for those ecosystems as well. From our side, we also have a lot of platform experience, deep platform experience of Amazon Web Services, as well as a lot of other technologies which are commonly used with MySQL and MongoDB, such as OpenStack, Mesos, or Docker. And we are working a lot on finding ways to make the MySQL and MongoDB better used, very usable with those platforms, which we do through our software, but as well as finding some recipes and solutions how to do that with other open source software. Now, if you look at our business focus, what Percona is focused on is really building long-term partnership relationships, which is mainly support and managed services. We believe that is the best way to really to have a mutual relationship, right, where we can help your success over a long term. But at the same time, if you just need, let's say, a little help with a project through consulting services, we're very happy to do that as well. If you look at those ongoing services, which I see as a partnership, this comes from those 3 different levels, right? We have Percona Support, which you can see as a foundation, which is 24/7 operational support, bug fixes, expert advice, and so on and so forth. Now, if you want to have something more, you want to start work with that on a more proactive basis, then you have a Percona Care service, which would include technical account manager, some regular consultants, some more proactive work for us to advise what you actually maybe need to be done. And then finally, if you say, hey guys, you know what, managing databases is hard, and that is not really what we want to focus on in our case, in our company, then you can let us to handle that problem through Percona Care Ultimate, and we will actually manage the databases for you. Fully managed, it would be first to react if there's any alias database goes down, and so on and so forth. We also do consulting and training, which can be done both for on-site and remote, and those can range from really a relatively small scheduled block, so of 4 hours, to really we have been doing projects where full-time person would be assigned to projects for many weeks and months at the time, right? And in this regard, we can work both in as a project or staff augmentation mode. One thing which we do very well, and we're in unique position to do, is what we have those kind of combined support agreements, which covers both MySQL and MongoDB. So if you have their infrastructure where you use a lot of the leading open source MySQL database and non-relational MongoDB, then you can get that covered by the single support contract with a single vendor, Percona. And it's possible to set it up so we do not count in the server. We can really offer you customized coverage wherever we have to cover all your services in your enterprise, maybe some business unit application, or some locality. We are very flexible in this regard. Yeah, so now another piece, what I would highlight, for some reason I put a different number in the title and the text itself. So I guess that's a different kind of rounding. But anyway, if you look at our customer satisfaction, that is something that we are very proud of. We are in business of having very happy customers. And the reason of that is by design, because as I mentioned to you earlier on, our software is free and open source. There is no lock-in out there, and that means we just have to be working very hard to keep our customers happy from our support or managed services, right? And so we have been really investing a lot in that. I would dare to say more than some other vendors on this specifically. Another highlight I would point out here is our support server coverage policy. That is something which has been clarified over last few months. And what we require in this case is all the servers which are required to support a given applications to be covered, right? Not just one of the servers, right, for massively shared application, because, well, frankly, that just would not fair. And then we look at all the servers which actually store your application data, right? So for example, if you're running ProxySQL or MongoS or Mongo config service, this is not the service which you require to be covered or count towards the number. At the same time, inactive members of a replica set or MySQL slave service or what's not, which are have to be covered. We require you to only cover the production service, but in many cases it makes sense to cover the stage in development or QA service as well, because this way we can help you earlier and hopefully can work with your development team to resolve the problems before they're being pushed to production. And again, through the enterprise-wide agreement, you can really have that problem or go away by choosing to cover, for example, a specific application instead of counting the server. The new cool thing in Percona Support is now we fully support their ProxySQL for any kind of MySQL, MariaDB, Percona Server deployments, not just for Percona XtraDB cluster, which we had support for quite a while. Okay. Now let's talk about Percona Software. And just to remind you again, what all Percona Software is free and open source, and there is no kind of very special versions. You're probably sick of me repeating that all the time, but oh my gosh, believe me that I constantly I do that just because I get so many people constantly asking me, well, how do I buy your enterprise version, and why would I do that? Because your already open source version already includes so many amazing features. So with software, I wanted to note what there have been some new end of life. So Red Hat Enterprise Linux 5 and Ubuntu 12.04 now has reached end of life. So we stopped providing the Percona Server builds of those platforms, and if you're still using those, then we would recommend you to upgrade, as there would be no more builds for those platforms, even if those include security release. Of course, if you still have some of those platforms running, we will support you through our support services, just builds wouldn't be available. Over the last few months, we invested a lot in making Percona Software available on Docker, and you can see pretty much all main Percona software for MySQL and MongoDB is now available on Docker, which is fantastic news if you are using Docker heavily. Our current GA version for Percona Server for MySQL is 5.7, same as the MySQL Community Edition. And the cool thing about this is it includes alternatives to many MySQL enterprise features, such as auditing or pluggable authentication. And from Percona Server, we are focused a lot on the performance and observability. So if you look at the recent improvements in the recent releases, and note MySQL Percona Server 5.7 is our current GA release, which was kind of stable for a few months, so we're not doing that much active development in that. Now we have MyRocks includes as an experimental in this release. Now it's actually can be accessed through or in the standard repositories right now. Some special setup needed. We also support MySQL group replication, and this is just worth mentioning because so many people say, well, you know what, Percona, you probably don't support a MySQL group replication because you have a PXE, which is alternative. Yes, we have a PXE. Yes, it is an alternative, and yes, it is, we believe, is better for many use cases when using MySQL group replication. But our commitment is we support everything which is included in MySQL Community Edition, and that means we support the MySQL group replication as well. Let me talk about those in more slides. So MyRocks, as I mentioned, it's included now. It's not GA quality yet, though it's really improving quickly, and we are expecting that to be released as GA over the next few months. And please, if you're interested in this technology, start testing that and provide us as feedback, because it will only be really GA quality if people try it in a variety of workloads and tell us what we need to do better. Another cool stuff is what we have now implemented this this feature, which was in Facebook patches from quite a while, which would allow for the optimization for indexes for certain queries, which can improve performance quite a lot, right? That is feature which is kind of relatively complicated to explain, right? But it basically allows us to use index almost like a covering index if it has a full prefix of the data which we want to access. For more details, I would suggest checking out the documentation link which I have here. So what we are looking also to be released soon? One is integration of performance schema and TokuDB, which is going to be very good for performance analysis for TokuDB. Much better. Another cool tool we are working on right now is their logical read ahead, which can really substantially improve performance for large range scans for fragmented tables. And it provides the most benefit for spinning disks, but even if you're using SSDs, it can provide improvement. It also is providing substantial improvements in the cloud environments where, well, there is kind of network latency added to the storage, so driving that efficiently makes sense. And then they're also working on advanced encryption support with in Percona Server, which will be available soon. Another thing that we are switching more and more resources right now is MySQL 8. You may know what the MySQL 8 release candidate is now available. So we are starting to work on the Percona Server 8. We have some internal builds out there. We're passing that through our QA suite. We're finding, bugs, fixing our integration bugs, reporting a lot of bugs also to Oracle, which you find because our QA environment is really rigorous, right? What's the right word? And we often find some additional bugs which other QA teams miss. Percona XtraBackup. This is our the solution for hot backups for MySQL with InnoDB. This is alternative to the MySQL Enterprise backup, while I would say looking at the popularity, it probably is the opposite, right? The MySQL Enterprise backup is an alternative to Percona XtraBackup at this point. It has a lot of features for all kind of backups. And backup is relatively boring, right? Not very exciting, but we're still doing some improvements out there. Recently, we looked a lot about the performance because we are seeing people using larger and larger databases of MySQL. Some of them are getting into, tens of terabytes in size. And in this case, even if a binary backup, you really need to optimize that. So we now support hardware CRC 32 for page and log checksums, as well as we done a lot of parallel operations, right? So you can do kind of extraction from a stream in a parallel, right? That's if you're doing targzip backup, right, or something like that. Parallel encryption, decryption, and so on. And another interesting feature, which is kind of aforementioned lags here is we now have a way, a new way of backup which deal with that issue of parallel index creation, right? So the trick out there is with the new MySQL 5.7. It doesn't log all the page changes in the log, then it does an online index creation in a DB. And the benefit of that is, of course, the index creation can be done even faster. But the bad thing is that is not compatible with Percona XtraBackup or MySQL Enterprise Backup, because it has to log. It relies on having all the changes to the table space to go through transaction log files, and this mode allows us to prevent those potentially unsafe operations and make sure backup is successful. Percona Toolkit is another tool we have, which a lot of you are aware about, and this is kind of a Swiss Army knife set of tools which is designed to really help DBAs to be more efficient and do less mistakes. For example, instead of performing 5 commands or writing their own tools, you can just use Percona Toolkit to do many of the typical operations. In Percona Toolkit 3.0, we now support not only MySQL and the other solutions of MySQL family, but we also support MongoDB with the 2 most commonly wanted tools, PT MongoDB Summary and PT MongoDB Query Digest. And the cool thing about those tools is what we are having new tools implemented in Go rather than Perl, which is a more modern language and which is a more high performance language as well. In Percona Toolkit, we have added some number of small features. In this case, again, this is a pretty mature tool set. But for example, now we support after triggers and PT online schema change, which were supported before, as well as some other improvements. And we also done a number of improvements in PT stock, such as get information from performance schema, which can help you substantially with troubleshooting. Percona Server for MongoDB is our alternative to MongoDB 3.4, and that's also compatible with the MongoDB Community Edition. Again, it's 100% open source and has many alternatives for now MongoDB enterprise features. Additionally, we provide 2 storage engines, which are both GA now, is MongoRocks and the Percona Memory engine. Here is some changes for Percona Server for MongoDB 3.4 compared to the older 3.2 version. And you should note here what Percona FT is no longer available in this release. We have pretty much replaced that with RocksDB, which is as good or better for similar workloads, and we implemented number of other features out there. Here is a quick benchmark for Percona Memory Engine for MongoDB versus WiredTiger, and you can see in this case is what both for SSDs and for spinning drives we're getting much better performance with a Percona Memory Engine, as well as what is also maybe even more important for some application is much more consistency. So if you have some latency sensitive applications, often performance alone is not enough for you. You need to also to make sure that every single request is serviced within very short deadlines, and that is what Percona Memory Engine provides you. And here is another comparison of WiredTiger versus MongoRocks for write-intensive workloads. You can see in this regard what RocksDB offers substantially better performance, and as well as it's much more uniform compared to WiredTiger. Now, some of you may heard what MongoDB 3.6 was released as a released candidate, kind of similar to MySQL 8. And so we have also started work on Percona Server for MongoDB 3.6. We also have our the merge now going through some internal testing and integration, and we are really looking forward to having Percona Server for MongoDB 3.6 available soon after MongoDB 3.6 release. Percona XtraDB cluster, which is really the state-of-art high-availability solution for MySQL available for Percona, which is based on Galera technology, and that is indeed a very easy way to bring HA to your MySQL environment, and it especially works very good if you have a cloud or you're using Docker with containers with orchestration. It has a lot of cool features like automatic provisioning, self-scaling, health-healing. It's very easy to integrate that with automatically after scale applications and so on and so forth. In PXE 5.7, we did a lot of improvements, right? We integrated the cluster with a load balancer with ProxySQL. We did instrumentation with performance schema. We now support data at rest encryption, and we have implemented what's called their strict mode, which really was one of the most kind of loud complaints from users of other versions of Galera integration and from previous versions of PXE, is what there are a lot of features which kind of don't really work properly, but which are still allowed. Like you could write to some tables, but hey, they wouldn't be replicated. Well, that is not a good behaviors, right? Many of us have development teams, and you don't really want to explain to developers what they can and cannot do, right? You just want things either work or give you an error, right? So you can, as a developer, go to DBA and ask questions, why hell is not working? So that is exactly where a behavior PXE strict mode provides. We also obviously have done a lot of work with integrating Percona XtraDB cluster with our Percona monitoring management solution. There is a lot of very cool visualization available out there. What is new in PXE 5.7? Well, we have over the last few months did a lot of work to get a much better performance, right, which is really up to 10 times better. And we also have things like parallel state transfer support with Percona XtraBackup and much better instrumentation of a few things. Here is an example and some links with more details, and you can see what we are getting much better performance for heavy contention environments in PXE 5.17 and more compared to the previous version. Now, these of course are benchmarks, and I actually asked one of the very important customers of ours, which really is pushing PXE to its limits, right, operating a very large multiple terabytes installations with very heavy workload. And I was asking them, hey guys, you know what, we of course did our benchmarks and they're getting up to 10x difference. How much do you get like in your real life workloads? And they say, well, we're not getting the 10x, but we see about 6x times more throughput, which is, well, obviously very good, right, to see such a good gap, a good improvement on real life workloads as well. We also implemented the cluster view instrumentation, and what is this is allows for every node you can run a query which gives us the status for a whole cluster, right? So for example, in this case, we can see what there are 2 nodes in this cluster which are operating on the single segment, and one of them is donor right now, another is joiner, which is quite convenient to monitor an application that's can be used with proxy better and more simple ProxySQL integration in the future and other good stuff. PXE with ProxySQL integration, what is that about? Well, really, there are many ways you can run ProxySQL with PXE and other Galera solutions. But what we wanted to make sure is to make it as simple as possible to do that. So we provide ProxySQL admin script where you pretty much can run one command, which will set up everything for your PXE, and you can set it up in different environments, right? You can set it up saying, hey, I want to set up ProxySQL to load, balance, and read and write from all the nodes in the cluster, or you can specify that in read-write splitter, and then you will be writing to only one PXE node, and then you will read from all of them. And depending on workloads, you may want one or another. We also implemented their support for zero downtime maintenance, and in this case, it's both ProxySQL can be restarted kind of online without the downtime even on a single node, as well as you have an integration of ProxySQL. Then if you want to shut down the node, it can sort of signal to a proxy, hey, I'm going down soon, and it will stop routing user traffic to that, so it can then safely shut down without impacting your in-flight transaction. Okay. Next, Percona Monitoring Management. This is our comprehensive database-focused monitoring solution, which is free and open source. You just install your own, and you can really focus on that or deploy it both in your own data center or in the cloud. And of course, the great thing with such deployment is you can really share much more details with a tool which you are running in your own data center. You don't have to be concerned about the cloud security concerns, right? Like if you kind of have to send the data from your sensitive in-house environment to some cloud monitoring solution out there. So what questions does PMM allows us to answer? Well, one important question to answer is what queries are causing the load on the server, right? And you may know in many cases it's that is going to be a very important question to answer, because what your developers care about the database server is to make sure when they send a query and they respond very quickly, right? And that is what you can see here, both in terms of number of queries you run, as well as whatever latencies and so on and so forth. Now, often you'll have a next question then, why are those queries causing the load we have? And that is another question we be able to answer. So for example, from this question, you can say, well, look at that, there are about 25% of time being spent on the log time. Well, so that's probably have some substantial contention on the table logs and the row logs, right? And in this case, I can even see the difference, how much corresponds to the table log versus a row level log in this case. Now, the next thing you would wonder is if you spot the queries causing the load, right? You can understand why, and how can you fix them, right? How can make them to run better? And we provide you all the most important information on the single page here, right? Like query example, how it looks, table status, explain how a table looks, and so on and so forth. That is all available, and that really allows to review and resolve queries very quickly. We also provide the information about the system information, MySQL information, and also the information about the hardware and operating system as well. If it looks familiar, then it should be, because that is a report which is generated by Percona Toolkit, which in this case integrates with PMM. We also integrate with Grafana, and Grafana really allows us to get a lot of very beautiful graphs for a lot of insights showing what's happening inside the system. So this gives us information on operating system and hardware level, like I/O, disk latency, network, this kind of stuff. We can also drill down to see the database level, right? So for example, here we can see MySQL uptime, how many queries it's running, buffer pool size, and so on and so forth. A lot of other important information which you will make a look at the database level. For more details, you can check out the demo, the pmmdemo.percona.com, which is a very nice resource, which actually has the whole demo of PMM set up with a number of hosts, and you can like really explore those graphs before you choose to go ahead and look at that. Okay, another interesting interesting things. What is new in PMM? And PMM is very actively developed right now, so we have like cool stuff coming up pretty much every month, right? And there is more to come. One of the new developments since last call we have was now query analytics. It really supports MongoDB as well. So in this case, that graph which looks similar, but it is actually from about the MongoDB, right? For showing the information about the queries which are having a workload on your MongoDB engine. We also added the MyRocks monitoring, as they're working on fully supporting MyRocks in the Percona infrastructure, right? And you can see example of some of their graphs which allow you to really get insights of the or in the MongoRocks environment. And another interesting piece, what we have added, is called the Advanced Data Exploration dashboard. And Advanced Data Exploration dashboard allows you to take a look at the values of the many data points which don't have the actual dashboard created for. So in this case, or which may you want to look at a different way. So in this case, for example, I entered at the value to take a look at the INADB buffer pool size for all hosts, and I can say, wow, look at that. There are a number of hosts which only use default 128 megabytes of buffer pool size instead of 8 gigabytes, and in some cases probably makes sense, like a MyRocks. Well, it's using MyRocks instead of INADB, so it makes sense. INADB buffer pool is kind of small, but another one of them, maybe it has been a mistake. Another thing which we are quite proud of is what we really create in PMM is a very advanced dashboard to really understand the Prometheus, that is the backlog of the backend for the monitoring time series which we use in PMM, right? How how is it performing? And really, that is probably the most advanced Prometheus focused dashboard you can find anywhere, which can help you to right size your Prometheus installation for all the system that you use for PMM and troubleshoot some other problems. Okay. So another couple of announcements, not technology related. So Percona Live, Santa Clara, or Percona Live in Santa Clara, taking place in April. As usually, the call for paper is now open, and it will be open until December 22. So if you have some topics worth talking about, please submit a call or just save a date for attendance. And the last one meaningful slide is we're also going, as many other tech companies, to this big, massive Amazon Web Services event called reInvent, taking place in Vegas in now less than 2 weeks. So we are going to be out there. If you are there, please come by and say hi. Okay, Well, it is. I know I was kind of quick today, saving you some time. So for questions or just letting you end earlier.
Thank you so much for that, Peter. So at this time, we'll go ahead and open it up for questions that you have. Go ahead and enter those in the questions panel down below. As a friendly reminder, a copy of today's webinar will be made available to everyone within 48 hours or less. You'll get the recording and the slides. And you can always email me as well, emily@percona.com, in case you have questions that you forgot to ask during the webinar as well. If we run out of time, we will always make sure to do a follow-up blog entry on Percona's database performance blog. So looks like we actually have no questions, so we can conclude a little bit early today.
Yes, that's fantastic. Well, that means I was either very clear, right, or not clear at all. But anyway.
Oh, we actually have one.
We have one. Oh, okay. Yes.
Sorry, I gotta give you guys a chance to type. My apologies. In the PMM query analyzer, the graphs of the query performance, is there any way that you could show a larger version of that? It was a little hard to see. And then also, is there any plan to improve the graphing? Any other kind of updates that are planned?
Yes, yeah. Like in terms of exploring that, I mean, I can understand on the slides, and especially going through GoToWebinar, the quality may not be as great. I would suggest you to take a look at their PMM demo, percona.com. That is online demo, which is available to everybody 24/7, so you can just explore those graphs and many others. And yes, we are working on their usability improvements for graphs as well as for other improvements for our query analytics feature, right? So for example, one thing you will notice right now, we are just giving you, 10 top 10 queries, right? And you can of course go and load more queries, but that's it. We are looking to provide the opportunity to get more queries, right? To get queries by, I don't know, let's say not the load the cause, but put to show the slowest queries first, right? Or queries maybe which create a lot of temporary tables, stuff like that. So that is all in the plans. And as I mentioned before, the PMM is moving rapidly, right? I mean, I think it's well, in general, the pace of development of a monitoring application, which have a large GUI component tends to be a lot faster than development of hardcore database kernel. Then you have to be kind of really very kind of slow and painfully careful. So keep watching. I would suggest subscribe to Percona newsletter. A lot of updates about the PMM are going to be shared through this channel.
Thank you so much for that, Peter.
Okay.
Okay. Now we're at the end of our questions.
Okay, fantastic, fantastic. Well, then let me give you all back the 15 minutes and let's end here.
Thank you so much, everybody, and we'll see you on our next webinar.
Thanks.